I'm going to give it another 2 to 5 minutes just to get all other people on board. There's more and more people joining us.
So Bjorn, once you give us the go-ahead, then Makgabo will begin the session. Thanks.
No problem. I'll just give it another minute or two just to see if we can get more people on board. You guys probably will be limited to see about 10 people. Makgabo, I'm giving another minute and then we can start. Still got people joining us. We will start the session at 5 past. Okay, Makgabo, you can start your presentation. People will keep on joining, but that's fine. For now, you can start. I'm admitting the people while you go. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to SABS SANS56002 Innovation Management Guidance Webinar. My name is Makgabo Mahia, working at the SAPS as the Team Leader Systems and Services. And I'm going to be the program director for this important session. South Africa, through the SABS, is one of the founders of ISO TC 279, which developed standards in innovation management. The aim was actually to assist the organizations in capturing the best ideas and continually improving to keep up with the competition. Kindly note that there will be a question and answering session at the end of all the presentation, but you may also post your questions or comments on the chat box to deal with later. Without any further ado, I'll call upon Dr. Sadhvir Bisoon, the Standard Division Head overseeing all the standards activities and beyond. Dr. Bisoon is going to tell us about the role of SABS in developing relevant South African national standard in support of national, socio-economic and environmental priorities. Over to you, Sadhvir.
Thank you, Machabo. And good morning, everyone, and welcome to this very informative session, to which we're going to talk about innovation management. Machabo, I just want to confirm that my presentation is on presentation mode and colleagues can see it.
Yes, it is on the presentation mode.
Right. Thank you. Morning once again, colleagues. So I'm going to talk very briefly on the mandate of the South African Bureau of Standards and how we play an important role in the development of South African national standards through a very comprehensive stakeholder engagement process and through facilitated processes at international, regional, as well as national standards committees. So just as an overview, the South African Bureau of Standards has a legislated mandate. The shareholder of the SABS is the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. And our core focus as an organization is threefold. One is to develop, promote and maintain South African national standards. Two is to promote quality with respect to commodities, products and services. And three is to provide conformity assessment services. And there are a wide variety of conformity assessment services that the SABS provides, which is testing, certification, inspection, a few just to mention. Within the technical infrastructure category of institutions, SABS works very closely with one of the regulators in the country. And this is represented by NRCS, the National Regulator for Compulsory Specifications. Also works very closely with SANS, the South African National Accreditation System. This entity is responsible for making sure that bodies providing conformity assessment services have the infrastructure resources to make sure that they can provide these services, and SANS is the oversight governance body. And last but not least, NAMISA, which is the National Metrology Institute of South Africa. This institution is responsible for testing and calibration, measurement and traceability. So these four entities actively play an important role in the efficient functioning of the economy. So I'm going to go into standardization in context. So at the global platform, many of you will understand and appreciate the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, all 17 of them, which countries, including South Africa, have signed on to and have specific targets to achieve by 2030. These targets subsequently are broken down into national targets and are distributed to both the public sector and the private sector to initiate projects and programs that will reach a national target and subsequently contribute towards the international targets as set out. Underpinned by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, South Africa has the National Development Plan, and our National Development Plan has 9 pillars within it to ensure that we provide address a number of national priorities, including infrastructure, job creation, alleviation of poverty, addressing issues of service delivery, inequality, etc. And these, once you align them very closely to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, they are very closely aligned, and a few of the UN SDGs are closely aligned to each of the pillars of the National Development Plan. So where does SABS come in terms of driving a standardization strategy? We have an industrialization priority master plan that has been developed by Department of Trade and Industry and Competition. Our standardization strategy is aligned very closely to support the DTIC industrial priority sectors in terms of developing technical solutions. And these are international best practice technical solutions, bringing them into South Africa through a process of standardization and adoption of international best practices so that we can allow these best practices to be adopted, implemented in South Africa, and it further allows for the efficient management of businesses, including efficient delivery of services within the public sector as well. This is done through national technical committees. We have a significant and comprehensive representation in our technical committees, underpinned by strategic business plans, and we participate in a wide variety of I think my slides have just, okay, so to confirm that you could see my following slide. And this is a very important role in making sure that we bring in international best practice to South Africa. There are three important pillars that we need to look at in terms of how standards support the public sector, the private sector, and importantly so, the consumer as well. So every day, standards play a very important part in our daily lives, whether it's quality products, quality services, environmental protection, consumer protection. Standards are the key focus in terms of driving these specific agendas in these various subsectors, especially in the private sector. Standards basically reflect the art, and they provide a vehicle for dissemination of new technologies, innovative practices, and this underpins the movement of goods and services within the country and outside of the country, regionally as well as internationally as well. It plays an important role in the technical aspects of societal and environmental policies and contribute to sustainable development. Plays a very important role to support the regulator to achieve regulatory objectives, and certainly supports consumer in terms of ensuring that consumers make informed decisions about products and services in the marketplace. So in terms of international standardization, as a member of ISO and IEC, ISO is the International Organization for Standardization, IEC is the International Electrotechnical Commission, and underpinned by the World Trade Organization Technical Barriers to Trade agreements, which South Africa is a signatory to since inception. SABS plays a very important role in influencing international standards, and this could also include the ISO 56000 series of standards that have been developed at the international level, as well as bringing these standards to a national level and adopting these standards and subsequently making them accessible to the public, as we have various models and modes of allowing these documents to be accessible. Certainly there's copyright issues to these documents, and these documents may not be available for free, but at a cost to the client that requests these standards. So at a regional level, and I think the buzzword here is the African Continental Free Trade Area and the implementation of the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, SABS, amongst a number of national standards bodies in the continent, actively participate in technical committees within the continent, and these technical committees are housed within regional bodies, which is ARSO, African Organization for Standardization, AFSEC, the African Electrotechnical Commission, and then a sub-regional body, which is SADC-STAN. The key focus is to ensure that there is a harmonization of these best practice standards and tools that will subsequently support the movement of goods and services within the African continent, thereby increasing the contribution of services as well as products within the African continent and supporting the growth of the economies within the region. At a national level, we have a collection of more than 7,500 standards. We publish on average 200 standards. Our work is done within technical committees, and we have in excess of 1,700 experts that participate in the development of national standards. The key principles of developing national standards is through a process of ensuring that there's a level playing field, which espouses a number of principles which include openness, transparency. Standards need to be market relevant. We have to go through a process which is a due process, which is international best practice, allow for coherence of documents within the various technical committees and between the various standards bodies internationally and regionally as well. It is underpinned by consensus, which is general agreement by broader stakeholder groups, as well as stakeholder engagement is a key platform for ensuring that all participants and stakeholders contribute towards a technical solution that is being developed. We also allow for a significant amount of stakeholder balance in our technical committees, and majority of the participants are industry because they are the greatest users of our standards in the marketplace. We also ensure that we have representatives, government representatives, academia, NGOs, consumer representatives, and SMMEs participating so that it's a well-balanced structure that delivers these key deliverables in the marketplace. I think this is my final slide in terms of the importance of standards and how it contributes towards United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. These are just a handful of management system standards that have been published. The most common management system standards that you may be aware of is ISO 9001, which is the SANS-ified version, SANS ISO 9001, which is the quality management system. We also have the environmental management systems. Subsequently, a number of management system standards have evolved and been created based on market relevance. Things like managing energy security, not only nationally, regionally, but globally as well. So you have a standard on energy management system, standards that manage occupational health and safety, which is SANS 45001. Over the recent history around COVID, medical device management system, and that's a key important standard, SANS 13485, that played a significant role in contributing towards the implementation of management systems around products and services related to COVID-19. In terms of food security management system is ISO 22001. And then you go on to other management system standards, which have recently been launched in the recent years, which have subsequently been adopted by the SABS as a national standard. Business continuity management systems, very critical. Education organizations management systems, and adventure tourism, security management systems in the supply chain, information security management system. These are all standards that are quite relevant, especially in the digital age that we are interacting, engaging, allowing for interoperability of systems and processes. And the key to our discussion today is innovation management system and how important innovation is towards creation of new ideas, improvement, value creation that will support both the public and private sector in terms of sustainability issues that we need to address from a national perspective. So colleagues, with that, a few introductory remarks together with the mandate of the Bureau and statements of introduction around innovation management systems. Thank you for your attention. I trust that we will have a very engaging presentations and a significant amount of information sharing during this session. Thank you. Thank you, Mkhabo.
Thank you very much, Sadvir, for this insightful presentation. And like I said before, you are very much welcome to put your questions or comments on the chat area, and we will deal with it later during the question and answering session. We are just on time. Thank you very much for that, Sadvir. Our next speaker is going to talk about why SANS 56002 and its family standard. The next speaker is the CEO of Innocentrics, an innovation company that helps their clients to bring innovation to life. The company specializes in providing innovation services and assist organizations to create engagement and deliver the future. The speaker often acts as innovation competition and is passionate, or as a judge, at innovation competition, and is passionate about the management and measurement of innovation in the organization. He also acts as head of faculty for innovation at the Da Vinci Institute for several years, and also was the adjudicator for the Technology Top 100 TT100 Innovation Business Awards. The speaker is also one of the South African experts through SABS for the development of ISO 56000 series innovation management standard, in particular 56008, which is innovation management tools and methods for innovation operation measurement guidance. The speaker is Henra Meyer. Over to you, Erna.
Thank you very much, Makgabo, for the kind introduction. And thank you very much for being here this morning and for us to be able to share with you around innovation management and the innovation management standards in South Africa. It's such a pleasure to be able to do that this morning. So in the next 20 minutes on the agenda, what we're going to discuss is we're going to start with interesting innovation numbers. So what's happening and what are people saying around innovation? We will then look at what is ISO 56000, ISO 56002, and the series of innovation management standards. And from there, we will go a little bit deeper into considering what it looks like in unpacking at a very high level the 7 key elements to effectively manage innovation and grow an innovation capability, and also the 8 key innovation management principles. So I think in general, we all agree that innovation is becoming increasingly important. But did you know that research in 2019 shows that innovation was mentioned in quarterly and annual reports over 33,000 times? 255 books were published in the last 90 days of 2019, every 90 days, with innovation in the title. 43% of executives say that their company has a chief innovation officer or a similar role, and 28% of business schools has either the word innovation, innovate, or innovative in their mission statements. So I think if we talk about innovation, there's various reasons for organizations to innovate, and you will probably recognize many of the reasons for you on the right-hand side, or all of them. We innovate to adapt and evolve. We innovate to grow and transform as organizations. We innovate to compete and win, or to create completely new markets in our industries. And we also innovate because we want to perform better. So the reasons are plentiful, but it's also becoming more important these days because of the innovation premium. So the innovation premium is actually at a very high level. That premium that investors put on your organization because they trust you as an organization and believe that you will successfully continue to create new value in your industry to your customers and remain relevant. So an innovation premium is becoming more and more important for organizations. And how can we demonstrate that as organizations in the way that we manage our organizations and in the way that we manage innovation? You might know that the innovation premium is also at this point in time still being used to find Forbes top innovation company list. So a very relevant fact in the innovation world still today. And although we know that it is important, research in 2020 has showed us that innovation presents an opportunity that we all are very aware of, but that very few organizations feel equipped to pursue. It is important to do that because if we look at the research being published in 2020, it states that companies that invest in innovation in hard times outperform their peers with up to 30% post-crisis times specifically. It also shows that 90% of executives believe that their business will change fundamentally in the next 5 years. So there's no doubt about that. But yet, business leaders say that they are innovating not successfully enough to generate revenue or measurable growth. So whatever we're doing with innovation, we're doing things, but the results are not really helping us to see the difference and to be successful with innovation. And then 3 in 4 global executives say that a lack of skills is an issue for them, to such an extent that 64% say that this specific problem is restricting their ability to innovate. So what type of skills do we need to innovate better? And what does that mean for organizations? So how can we address this gap? And I think in comes the ISO 56000 series of innovation management standards. So the next slide I'm going to provide you with is just going to give us a very high level overview of what it is at a glance and what it consists of. So if we look at the family of innovation management standards, you will see on the slide that the blue areas is an indication where the standards are still under development. They've not been published yet. And all of the white areas represent standards, innovation management standards that's already been published and that's available to the market. I think it's also fair to say, and Makhabu and the team from the SABS will possibly agree, that showing you a table like this is interesting because it's changing all the time. As we speak, people are working on these standards and it's already being updated and moving to the next stages. So if we look at them at a very high level, first is ISO 56000, which is the Innovation Management Standard, Fundamentals and Vocabulary. And this specific standard has already been adopted by SANS. Then we've got ISO 56002, Innovation Management Systems, Requirements. This is still under development, and this is a standard that will in future help us then to look at requirements and to get certified against the standard as well. 56002, possibly the one that we're most familiar with and that most of the other standards are built upon, is Innovation Management System Guidance. So and I'll show you a little bit later what that looks like in a bit more detail, but it presents the building blocks for innovation capability building, the key innovation management principles, and a lot of the other standards either refer to it very strongly or is really aligning with that in what it's putting forward as guidance for innovation management as well. ISO 56003, Innovation Management Tools and Methods for Innovation Partnerships, talking all about that. 56004, Innovation Management Assessment, providing guidance around how do we assess innovation management. 56005, Innovation Management, looking at tools and methods for intellectual property management. The guiding document around that has also been published and in the process of being adopted by SANS, as well as 56006, which speaks to tools and methods for strategic intelligence management for innovation, also in the process of being adopted by SANS. So then we've got 56007, and that's called Tools and Methods for Idea Management. And in a recent meeting, there was mention made of a possible title change for it to become Management of Ideas and Opportunities, because innovation is not only about idea management, that's also still under development. And then 56008, talking about tools and methods for innovation operations measurement. So if we take an idea from submitting the idea through towards implementation, what does those processes look like and how can we measure those processes? And then the last one being 56010, which is an illustrative example of 56,000 in general. In a nutshell, a very high-level picture of what the innovation management standards look like. At this point in time, they are all still innovation guiding standards. The requirements coming with 56,001. And Yes, that's quite a mouthful, but as you can see, in various stages of development. So if we look a little bit closer at ISO 56002, what it says and shows us is that it really presents guidance around 7 key elements for organizations to consider when wanting to effectively manage and grow an innovation capability. So those elements are unpacked, and it also forms the cornerstones of the innovation management system in the organization that's being put in place to enable, to form the framework for innovation and to enable innovation capability, evaluation and improvement and so forth. And that then is further based on 8 key innovation management principles. So let me share with you a little bit around what that looks like. So if we look at the key elements to effectively manage innovation and grow an innovation capability, according to SANS 56002, they look like this. So the first one is around context. So the standard unpacks what that means, how organizations can really make sure they act and consider the context for innovation in their own environment. So it talks about internal context, it talks about your external context as an organization, it talks about understanding interested parties and stakeholders in your ecosystem and how you use that knowledge and insight to plan and execute on your innovation program. As can be expected, leadership is another cornerstone, another element of innovation capability building. And here the standard talks about strategy, the vision for innovation, setting the objectives as well, and how leadership is creating that space and resources for innovation to take place in the organization. Then planning is another element, and here, as you can imagine, it talks about objectives for innovation and how we put in place those structures to make sure that innovation is executed upon successfully. In terms of support, what resources are we allocating, what should we consider, and how do we pull that together, how do we consider financial resources and more in terms of your innovation management system and giving that legs, making sure that that works. Operations, as you can imagine, how do we get from the idea in somebody's head to differentiated value in the market? What does that process look like? How do we make it seamless? What do we need to consider? And all of those stages are then unpacked. And then we get to evaluation, how to evaluate your innovation program, key considerations and what type of questions to ask, and then also improvement. So if we do evaluate the innovation management system, what type of actions do we need to take to make sure that we improve on this in the organization, that we take that learning and we integrate it into how we move things forward and how we manage innovation in the organization. Then, looking at the 8 key innovation management principles, this forms the foundation of the innovation management system again, and you will recognize it's very closely aligned to the key elements that we've just discussed. And here the standard talks about the realization of value, just referring to how do we take our innovation program and make sure that it creates new value in the market. Because as you know, innovation is about those 3 key elements. It's about the new idea that we have implemented and that we are taking to market. So how do we make sure that what we do with innovation in our organization is going to help us to realize value? Then it talks about future-focused leaders. Very interesting, all those activities that leaders need to consider, from opportunity identification to making sure we know how to manage failure. Very interesting concepts discussed and put forward in terms of the importance of future-focused leaders for innovation in the organization. And then strategic direction. I'm just going to hope the sound is not distracting you too much at the moment outside. So strategic direction is referring to how do we align what we do in the organization with our innovation objectives and make sure we use innovation as the vehicle to make innovation. So very important also culture. We can have a very fancy system for innovation, but if our culture is not conducive, then innovation is going to have a hard time. So the standard is talking about culture as a key innovation management principle, also about exploiting insights. This for me is quite important because we can talk innovation in the organization, but if we are not providing the correct context, if we're not innovating on the right things because we are plugged into what's happening in our industry and our environment, then it's quite possible that our innovation efforts will go to waste. Also, interestingly, the 8 key innovation management principles specifically mentions managing uncertainty. So how do we, as an organization, make sure that we manage uncertainty in the organization, and how do we communicate about that? Do we have a process in place that's helping us to really reduce risk but address it adequately for innovation to take place? And then also adaptability. How do we create an organization that's adaptable and pulling it all together, executing on your innovation program with a systems approach, because everything is interrelated and interacting with each other in the space for innovation management. So from my side, I hope that has helped to give you a very quick high-level overview in terms of what the innovation management standards look like, specifically ISO and SANS56002. I think also just to mention that from an ISO perspective, in terms of the innovation management standards, it is applicable for all organizations of all sizes, from emerging to small, medium, and large. It will just depend on your own context and how you apply it. So it's not prescriptive and how to apply it. It's giving guidance in terms of what to consider and how it can work for you. So from my side, thank you very much for the opportunity and for listening. And let's keep talking innovation. It's really important, and I think if we use the information that we have out there, it will really make a difference. So I wish you the best of luck. Thank you very much, Mkhabo.
Oh, thank you very much, Herna, for your intuitive presentation. The presentation you gave is really informative, and I would like to believe that colleagues got lots of info and also inspiration from your presentation. Thank you once more. And we just have to now go to the next speaker. Our next speaker is Mteto Nyati. Mteto Nyati is the Group Chief Executive at Altron, and then he will be presenting the why, what, and how of innovation, the benefits of managing technology and innovation towards improving business performance. Mteto Nyati is the CEO at Altron, having joined the company in April 2017. He is responsible for transforming Altron into a world-class information and communication technology company that does good business while doing good. He was previously Chief Executive Officer of MTN South Africa, where he succeeded in returning the mobile company to growth by overhauling employee engagement and transformation customer experience over 12 years. Mteto held various leadership positions at IBM in South Africa and Europe. He later joined Microsoft South Africa, where he was managing director for 6 years. In 2021, Mteto won the EY World Entrepreneur Award. South Africa is in recognition of his turnaround of Altron. In 2020, he was recognized by South African Professional Service Awards with Lifetime Achievement Award for Excellence in Management. The previous year, Mteto won the Business Leader of the Year Award at the All African Business Leader Awards and the CEO Special Award from the Institute of People Management. He was the joint winner of South Africa 2013 IT Personality of the Year, and in 2004 was named one of the Yale University World Fellow on Global Leadership. Mteto is the author of number one bestseller, Betting on Daki, a book about his life as a shopkeeper's son, family man, and business leader at local and multinational corporates. Ladies and gentlemen, let's just welcome Mteto to give us his presentation. Over to you, Mteto.
Thank you so much, Mkhabo, for that introduction. Truly appreciate it. And I also just want to thank the various people who have organized this very important event. It is a topic, this one, that we should be having discussions on a regular basis as a country. We are living in a country that really is in need of this kind of discussions. But certainly these kind of standards that we are coming up with here will certainly help us to have innovation that is much more focused, innovation that is also very much disciplined, and can help us to become global players. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you. So my topic is, I was asked to address the why, the what, and the how of innovation management. So in dealing with that, I felt that one needed to just first go back to us having a clear understanding and a common understanding of what innovation is and what innovation is not. And I found a definition which certainly speaks to the kind of things that we do here in Altron. And this definition says that innovation refers to the process an organization undertakes to conceptualize new products, new processes, and new ideas, or to approach existing products, existing processes, and ideas in new ways. This is really, it's one or the other, you know. Conceptualizing brand new products or services, processes, and ideas, or taking new existing products and improving on those products. And that's what innovation is. So getting back to Altron, Altron has been a company that has been around for over 55 years. To be able to adapt to change all the time, and it's largely the job that was done by the founders of this organization, and have helped us to be able to be where we are today. At the core of this company is a DNA which is really about innovation. It's about coming up with solutions that address the challenges that we're facing around us. So I felt that it is important to share with all of you here our one-page document that captures the strategy of our company, which informs everything that we do. I will start with the purpose. This is our reason of being as a company. We say that our reason of being is we want to deliver innovation that matters. You can see already from our mission, from our purpose, we are very clear what we are here for as a company. It's about innovation, but not just any innovation. It must be an innovation that makes a difference. It must it must be relevant, it must talk to the problems that we are facing on a day-to-day basis. And that's who we are. And it's important also as well for me to highlight here the emphasis on the delivering part. You know, it's one thing to dream dreams, but it's another thing to make sure that we implement, we get things done, you know. And at the core of who we are is this very strong focus on taking ideas and making those ideas come to life, and solving things, delivering and delivering. Our big problem as a country is not the shortage of ideas. It's not the shortage of policies or great principles. It's not that. What is the problem largely in our environment in South Africa is our ability to execute. And what I like the most, what we have here in this company, is this very, very strong focus on being practical and on delivering. But all of that is anchored around this whole idea of innovation. So listening to Henra sharing with us the management principles and the 7 key elements of strategy, she mentioned something about context. She also mentioned something about strategic direction and culture. It was quite interesting just listening to her and see how relevant her, her input was to the way we are approaching strategy or approaching innovation within our own company in Altron. If you look at the in the middle of this chart here, you will see that we've got a set of values as a company. These are the values that create the culture of Altron. You know, if you think of us, the thing that you know, the way we do things is being defined by those values. And one of the values that I want to highlight there, in fact, maybe two, is collaboration across teams. You know, this value called collaboration, collaborate across teams. And there is absolutely, if you are trying to drive a culture of innovation and you are keeping people apart, the people are not interacting, you are unlikely that you are going to be very successful. So collaboration is such an important part of what we do, and that enables us to be able to live our purpose. And that collaboration goes way beyond just internal collaboration. We collaborate with our customers, understand their pain points, and through those interactions come up with solutions that are relevant, but those solutions are informed, again, going back to Hendra's point. She mentioned something along the lines of exploiting insights. You know, as we engage with our customers, we get deep insights around the things that that matter the most about them. It could be about how they serve their customers. It could be about protecting their data, make sure that the data of the customers is not out there, it's not compromised. We need to be working with them to help them to do that. So collaboration is absolutely key. The other part, which is very important for innovation, is this diversity. You know, embracing diversity. You have in some cases, in situations where people are trying to come up with solutions, those solutions are so far removed from the realities of the customers that they are trying to serve. So if one does not have a diverse team that can bring different insights and perspectives, you'll end up having products, services, and processes that are not relevant. And for us, that is an important part of us driving this culture of innovation, the diversity and inclusion. And maybe the last point I want to mention here around the culture is, yeah, we can do all of that. We also, very, very important for us is getting things done. So that's the kind of culture. I just wanted to connect with what Henra mentioned here. The other part, what she mentioned, is about context. You know, we are driving all of this thing within Altron, but under a context of being in South Africa. And in South Africa, what are some of the things that we see happening? We have a problem of crime in our country, meaning safety and security. We've got a problem of having many people that are still not forming part of this digital economy, that they are excluded. We also have a problem of failing health systems. So our context and the choices that we have made as an organization is that we are not going to try and be everything to everybody. We made a choice, and with those choices, of course, there are consequences. But our focus, our resources are going around the three areas that we have mentioned there at the bottom when we're talking about societal impact. When we are challenging our teams, we're challenging our teams to be coming up with solutions that talk to safety and security, that talk to how do we help bring even more and more people into the economy, the financial inclusion, and how do we improve the health systems of this country. So that's the kind of innovation. It's not just innovation, anybody can do anything. We are driving it and aligning with the things that are important to our country. So if you were to think about companies like Netstar, whose responsibility we brought as a company, we started that whole sector. There was no such a sector before Netstar existed, but now it has become a global sector. Where we're talking about vehicle tracking, and that's an innovation that comes from South Africa. The other innovation that came from this country, which also came from Altron, was this whole decoder, systems, the set-top boxes, where we used to produce those for multi-choice many years ago. Now the whole technology is global, but it comes from this company. So this is the kind of DNA, the kind of focus that our company has. We've got this great track record of coming up with things that matter. But all of that is informed by strategy, and a strategy that focuses our efforts on a few things and make sure that on those few things we try and get those things right. And why innovation? You may be asking yourself, everybody is doing all of these great things all over the world. Can we compete? Why would we want to be in this space? Why don't we just resell other people's technologies? If you look here, just showing you some of the margins, where the value lies. Where does value lie in this chain? Where does it lie? Where are the profits being made? Depending on where you sit in the value chain. If you look at the bottom there, if you are a reseller, you make your decision that, hey, my job in South Africa, I'm starting a business. All I'm going to do is to take a product of Oracle or a product of IBM, product of Amazon, and just resell that product. You can see the margins, how low they are, and how difficult it would be to try and survive with such very, very tiny margins of 2%, around 2-3%. That's the kind of margin, because your only value add there is to sell. There is very little value add that those people are offering there. As you go up the chain, you start to see that the profits improve. So basically, you may be selling a product here in South Africa, getting that 2%, but whoever you are selling for, let's say Microsoft, where they are sitting, those are the kind of margins that they are making in the US through you. So basically, the value shifts to be outside of this country. So it is absolutely important that we need to drive innovation in our own country, and so as to keep as much value as possible within our country. So if I look at the kind of profitability that we are getting out of the products that we have developed in our own country, within Altron, we're talking about 55% profit margins, and that is the kind of healthy business that you want to be in when you're facing issues like COVID-19, when you have to do certain things. At least you've got some margin for you to be able to carry your employees during these difficult times, but still be able to exist. So that's another value of innovation. So as we move more towards the own platform, creating our own intellectual property, our relevance as a country, as a company, will start to go up in terms of the global scale. So that's why we need to be encouraging innovation. The different types of innovation, of course, most of you are familiar with all of this, is product innovation, product in developing of a new product or improvement of an existing one. We did this for Toyota. We came up with an idea. We pitched that idea to Toyota of a connected car, and now almost all of the Toyotas that are being produced in this country, they are sold now with a Wi-Fi. They're coming out with a Wi-Fi system, and they are also sold with a device that's able to track the health of that car and communicating back to Toyota on an ongoing basis what is the health status of that car. That's an innovation that comes from this country, adopted by Toyota Japan, and now Toyota is using this globally. And where are the jobs created? The jobs are created here in this country. That's another big plus around something like this. Where you're driving innovation in a country where we've got such a high unemployment. If we're focusing more in the space, is helping us to be able to employ more people, is helping us to be relevant globally, is helping us to capture value and bring it into South Africa. So when it comes to things like our tax, SARS is able to get so much more because we will be exporting some of this, So product innovation. The other innovation that we see is around process. It's not just about the product, but how you go about doing certain things. We've seen this being shown when it came to the COVID-19 vaccine. The vaccine is not something new, but how we went about, not us, how the world went about coming up with this new vaccine in such a short period of time, it was clearly the change of process. And that process has now led us to be able to come with a vaccine in 12 to 18 months. There is also a business model innovation. So what is my point here? My point is there are different types of innovation, and depending on where you are, what business you are in, one needs to focus on the things that are relevant to them. So within Altron, on the how part now, how do we go about doing this? How do we embed it as part of our own culture, within Altron? We came up with a platform called the Idea Trigger. We've built this platform. We've built it. It's our own intellectual property. What we've found is that the people that have got the most ideas have got the great solutions to the problems that we are facing. These are people who are the closest to the problems. People who are serving our customers. People who are in the call centers. These are some of the people that, on an ongoing basis, as they're serving these customers, they've got ideas of, hey, this is how best we think we can address this particular problem. So we decided to tap into this resource, and so we then, what we do, we pose challenges in terms of the company around our 4 strategic areas. It could be a customer service related challenge that we pose to the company, send it out there and let the employees come up with possible solutions around this particular challenge that we have given them. And they would then we would then rate these ideas and like them. It's more like a social media platform. You like, you comment on them, depending on the likes and the comments and stuff like that. The best ideas rise up above, they come up, and then based on the best ideas that have emerged, then we take those, we evaluate those, we look at the practicality of those, and the winners certainly then are the ones whose ideas we adopt and implement, and then and whoever came up with those ideas, that idea gets a certain reward. And in this way, we are engaging or helping and making sure that innovation is not just the preserve of the few technical people that are sitting there, but it's something that is part and parcel of the culture of our organization. And regardless of where you are, people have got great ideas. We want to tap into those ideas. So we built this platform for ourselves initially. It has served us, it continues to serve us, but now this is a platform that we have decided to also commercialize, and it's a platform that is available to our customers to use. And how does it work? As I've already indicated, we put in challenges that inspire ideas, and those ideas get submitted through a social media tool kind of drive. We engage with our employees, and they rate, they comment, they help us to select the best ones. And this platform also have got dashboards and reporting tools, you know, and it's a platform that we have used also together with our customers, deploying it within a customer environment, and helping the customers, us and the customer, to co-create solutions together by tapping into our employees on both sides. So all in all, I'll say that for us, innovation is something that is core to who we are. It is linked to our strategy, it's linked to our purpose. It is absolutely critical that you have a culture that is supportive of it. And like in anything, leadership matters. You know, leaders set the tone in the organization. And this is what we expect. We expect our leaders within Altron to be the champions of idea trigger, to be the champions of innovation, to be asking these questions and executing on our drive around innovation. So with that, I'd like to say thank you so much for the opportunity. Back to you, Master of Ceremony.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nyati, for sharing such wonderful thoughts with us, which I see that they are actually aligning to the 56,000 series innovation management standards. And thank you again. So we are going to move on to our last speaker. Our last speaker is Professor Benjamin Anderson. Prof. Anderson is the executive chairman at the Da Vinci Institute, and then he will be giving us presentation on the benefits of SANS56002 in the education sector. Prof. Ben delivered lectures and workshops at 16 at national and 14 at international conferences regarding the learning development needs of working adults, the relevance of indigenous knowledge system, the scholarship role of business leaders, change management, leadership development, continuous business improvement, the assessment and recognition of prior learning, experience of working adult learners, the changing roles for human resource professionals, the emergence of the fifth industrial revolution and human development in emerging economies. He was also involved in benchmark visits to the Czech Republic, Hungary, Brazil, Sweden, Denmark, Germany, Singapore, India, China, Malaysia, and Australia since 2004, regarding, amongst others, banking best practices, leadership development, workforce development, building relationship with labor movements, and mergers between multinational companies. Prof. Ben is currently the chairperson of SAP's TC 279 Innovation Management, responsible for the development of national standards for innovation management system since 2020. Over to you, Prof. You are muted, Prof.
Thank you very much, Mahalo. So today I want to talk a bit about creating opportunities for an innovation education exchange. And I would start by asking a few key questions and focusing on a few core concepts. And then I think important, as we've listened from both Hendra and Tetu, the importance of context. And in this regard, I want to talk a bit around what are the current megatrends that will probably inform and infuse and influence and impact on our lives probably for the next 10 to 20 years. And then about creating an example of developing an innovation management system framework from an education point of view. But I want to ask three first questions. Is innovation the source of your organization's future, your mission, your dream, and your projections about its sustainable growth? And I wonder what would be the response to this question, especially the connection between innovation and sustainability and sustainable growth. I would also like to ask, can your organization innovate in an effective and efficient manner if all the necessary activities and other interrelated or interacting elements influencing the organization are not managed systemically? As a business school, we see a lot of organizations doing many things, a lot of activity, a lot of running around, but we often found that the dots are not connected, and that if you don't manage it systemically, many of your efforts may not bear the necessary results. The third question that I would like to ask is, what role does your organizational resources, cooperative engagements, not collaborative, cooperative engagements with outsourced parties, or the acquisition of specialized entities play in establishing an innovation management system? And again, it's in the background of what we saw that Hendra presented as part of the key elements regarding context. If we listen to Tetu and we see how he talks about, delivering innovation that matters, and that it's about empowering people. So, and not just internally, to what extent are we looking at the nexus and the play from both within and from outside the organizational boundaries, cooperatively, to create and establish an innovation management system? The fourth question is, to what extent is your organization's innovation strategy aligned to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? Again, context. The fourth one, which is about quality education. The eighth one, which is about decent work and economic growth. And the ninth one, which is about the industry at large and innovation and infrastructure and how those things interplay. So I would like us to look at this presentation in the context of these questions about context and relevance. Now, the Oslo Manual in 2018 said innovation assumes the development of a new or improved product or a process that differs significantly from previous products or processes and is made available to peers. Made available to peers. The OECD says the ISO SANS standard for innovation management system assists organizations to respond to change in order to maximize opportunities for growth and the development while minimizing associated risks. I think Tetwa and Altron is a great example of understanding the interplay between maximizing growth and minimizing associated risks. A well-known colleague within the innovation space, Professor Mark Esposito, said, anchored in the solid foundations of intrapreneurship, collaborative innovation is the engine of modern, agile organizations capable of creating new capacity which can pioneer radical new ideas while testing the limits of markets, a true best friend for growth. I wonder to what extent do you and I see our businesses and our organizations, and do we appreciate that innovation is the best friend for growth, the true best friend for growth? In my view, I see too much of innovation being an event, an occasion to rebrand, to get attention, but I'm not sure that it is embraced as a true best friend for growth. Something, again, which Ntetu today made clear that Altron has positioned itself very well. Now, regarding context, and this is not new, it shouldn't be new to any one of us. If you look at the works being done across the globe around megatrends, what we are surrounded by, I mean, we all know the place of digitization, how it's impacting on all spheres of life, be it music or logistics or banking or healthcare or agriculture, or for that matter, any industry. Digitization. Mobilization, where we've seen that technology has been moving closer to us. We had a desktop at a distance, we held it in our hand, it's coming to our wrist, it's going to our face. The AR and the VR and the brain-computer interfaces, the BCIs. Screenifications. We went from paper to telephone to videos, and there will be a next iteration. A critical one for me as a megatrend is disintermediation, to cut out the middleman. We all have Apple and Spotify, know about Baidu, and YouTube disrupted the record companies as an example of whom they earned 90% of the income of the artists at that time. To what extent are we looking at our organization from a disintermediation possibility? Do I need to exist? Or is there a possibility that somebody could make me irrelevant because me taking a middleman position? The next one is robotization, where everything is converging into some spectacular creations. Transformation, becoming something else, beyond change and innovation. We often, in the debates on the innovation management system, get a lot to be confronted with the notion of change. But transformation is something else. It's where you will get a car manufacturer to become a mobile manufacturer. If we pose this question today to a company like BMW, will they see themselves in future as a car manufacturer or a mobile manufacturer? Intelligization, I spoke many times about this. It's about being disconnected to being connected via sensor networks and global device grids. For example, the AlphaGo self-learning computer who mastered the complex ancient Chinese game of Go. Why? Because it understood the surroundings and took the corrective action to solve a real problem. To what extent are you and I, from an innovation management system, consider the mega trend related to intelligization? Then there's the trend of automation, where it's linked to hyper efficiency by replacing humans with machines. Virtualization, where we create a digital version of everything possible. For example, moving from routers to hosting data in the cloud via software-defined networks, SDNs. We would not have anticipated virtualization in this context 20 years ago. Today, it's reality, and we're moving beyond that. And the last mega trend is the one of anticipations, where computers will anticipate your and my need before we know what we need. And the good examples that we know is Google Now and Google Home, which serve as typical intelligent digital assistants. So, ladies and gentlemen, why I wanted to raise this as a contextual piece, if we look at the development or establishment and development of an innovation management system, we should also be aware of the context and to what extent are you and I appreciating the context that's evolving and establishing itself around us whilst we want to create an innovation management system. Because we will create a very different innovation management system if these trends will be ignored. If we still think of cars as cars and not self-driving devices. If we still believe that from a business model process, middleman will always be there, and you don't appreciate the notion of disintermediation. If you don't appreciate the notion of a self-learning computer, and we can go through all those mega trends. Now, there may be more, and I believe as we move forward, this list will change and will evolve, but at least we should take note of these. Now, the next piece I want to share with you is about the education exchange. So over the past 30 years, but predominantly over the last 17 years, TT100 had a lot of engagement, amongst others, with the Altrons of the world, and looking at what are the drivers for innovation and technology. And what came out of that is an education model, if you wish to, that took note of the 8 principles as captured in the SANS series of realization of value, of future-focused leaders, of strategic direction, of culture, of exploiting insights, of managing uncertainty, of being adaptable, and taking a systemic approach. So if you look at this frame, at large, it's about the T and the I and the P and the S. It's about the management of technology as a key anchor, including the management of innovation as another anchor, the management of people on the far right, and in the center, having a systemic understanding of the world. And systemically, appreciating that I, as a workplace, operate within both a micro, a macro, a meso, and an exosystem. And that I must be aware of how I manage my technology and my innovation, my people, systemically, to appreciate the 8 principles of which I will then develop an innovation management system. But there are specific practices that's been formalized and principles that will underpin the idea of an organization being agile, being aligned, and being engaged. For example, in organizations who manage their technology well as well their innovation, we see that the 3 critical practices that emerge is transdisciplinary learning. Learning in teams, you may say. It's also about operationalizing ideation, being practical, making things that matter. And it's not about solutions per se, but about problem probing. So these are 3 critical practices that will support the idea of managing innovation and managing technology as an agile workplace. If you look at managing your technology and managing your people, there are 3 more practices that come to play. The one is appreciating, again, context, that you're global and a digital citizen. It also talks to the mega trends, that you're aware that there's a bigger world and an ever-evolving world that we have to operate in as people, acknowledging technology and embracing it. There's also the practice of computational thinking. I find it interesting that as part of Altron's goal or their purpose or mission going, I think it was on the mission, they said that they needed a net debt of an EBITDA of 1 times. Computational thinking is an integral part of going forward. It's also about the practice of personal mastery. Education has opened up the minds of many people around the globe. It's time for us to master ourselves in how we position ourselves within the current reality. If you look at the interface between managing people on the one side and managing innovation on the other side, there are 3 more practices. The one is probing reflective practices. Now, again, I think if you think of the principles of leadership and realization of value and creating culture and providing leadership, providing strategic direction, we should all be embracing the notion of probing reflective practices, rethinking, maybe in a very practical way, but rethinking and not just doing things on the fly. Social and emotional intelligence is a critical practice that we should all embrace and develop if we are wanting to be part of the development and the sustainability of an innovation management system. And cross-cultural engagement similarly. How do we learn from each other? So those 9 practices has been formalized as critical development areas for any organizational team who intends to develop an innovation management system according to those 7 key elements and those 8 principles. But apart from these 9 critical practices, there are also 6 competencies, and I quickly just want to go over them. The one is that we should really be able to get our people to co-create meaning and to co-direct direction. Those are 2 very important competencies for the workplace going into the future. People are not just signing up to obtain a salary or to do a task. Let them become co-creators of that meaning and let them co-create the direction. To facilitate conversations is critical. Engagements like this one today. We should all be more interested of sharing with others, giving away, as I've quoted the colleague before, the true friend is innovation, but then you must be ready to share it with your peers. Engaging creative networks, similar about facilitating conversation. How much are we doing? How much competence do we demonstrate in actually having conversations and engaging in creative networks? The 5th competency is the promotion of experimentation. We should allow ourselves to be more playful. We should allow ourselves to open up our minds to new possibilities, to break through the normative barrier of what is right and what is wrong and what is white and what is black, so to speak. And the last competence is the one about celebrating synergized accomplishments. So if we, again, these 6 competencies are competencies that can be developed over time, and we are strongly seeing that organizations that are able to, with the 9 practices, develop these competencies, that the possibility of becoming sustainably involved in the creation of an innovation management system is much higher because of these underpinning practices and competencies that are inherently anchored within the individuals. And we believe, if you look at this as an educational framework, based on the SANS series, that it will obviously create a workplace energy that will evolve around being coordinated when needed, being cooperative when needed, and being collaborative when needed. And from an innovation management systems point of view, it seems important to be aware of the flow of energy that at some times in creating IP, for example, you would play both a cooperative, a coordinate, and a collaborative role in ensuring the finalization of that IP, as an example. If you want to create value for the broader context, again, you will be aware of the flow of energy. And depending to what extent you are able to embrace these practices and principles, you will be able to get more flow of energy between the cooperative, the coordinated, and the collaborative workplace energy. And the more flow we will get, we see that companies are indeed able to create and positioned and have the capability to create an innovation management system. So Magaba, I think that concludes my presentation from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Ben, for your presentation. And I'm so glad that we are actually within the specified time frame. So before we can even go to the question and answering session, may we kindly all switch on the camera so that we can take the cool screenshot, both the presenters and the attendees. Beyond will take that, and then I'll give the direction from there. Let's kindly do that while we are still within time. We left with only 15 minutes to conclude this. Colleagues, can we put on our cameras? Bjorn, are you taking the call screenshot?
Just to come in, I've taken a few screenshots, so I think we covered.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay.
That's why I was quiet.
Okay, thank you very much. You may close them if you like. And again, I'd love to thank you, Sadvir, Prof. Ben, Mr. Nyati, and Ms. Meyer for bringing your expertise and experience in this forum. You indeed enrich us with so much knowledge. And for the attendees, just note that the presentation will be made available on YouTube at SAPS approved. And by so saying, we're going straight to a question and answering session. You may raise your hand if you have anything to say. And I'll, in the meantime, go to the chat room just to check the engagement. I've seen few. And if there's anyone who wants to ask the question, you can just raise the hand. I'll just start straight from the end there. I think it's Spingis. Spingis say thank you for 3 very insightful presentation. Unfortunately, he said, accept my apology, I need to attend another engagement. Thank you, Spingis, for that. I don't know if Sadvir was answering something here. It says standards reflect state-of-the-art technical solution, including specification, management systems, and other deliverables that can be used by company to define, create, and deliver differentiated, relevant solution to the market. And Kujo agree and accept to that. And there was a question from Kujo, which says, how best can innovation be catalyzed through standards, especially integrating established patterns and efficiency that will push organization individual to see the exciting gaps and influence in bringing forward value. And I think Sadvir answered that. That was the response from Sadvir on Kujo's question. And then another question was from Trevor Gordon, saying, where would you say value comes in the definition of innovation? I think he was referring to his question to Herna. And then Prof came in and say, if innovation does not matter, then I assume the value will be limited. And Herna is saying the innovation equal new ideas plus implemented plus creating value. If the new idea is not implemented and does not create value, it is not innovation. That was the answer to Trevor. So I don't see any hand here, but I've got quite few questions that I just noted here. They may not just be the questions, it's just maybe the observation. Firstly, to you, Sadhvir, on your last slide on the UN SDG, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I've seen that all the management standards are attached to the numbers there, which define each SDGs. So my question is, what are those goals and why are they important to be aligned with standards?
Thank you, Makhabu, and thank you for a very relevant question. So, you know, the SDGs, these are sustainability goals, global sustainability goals, and every organization, entity, be it public or private sector, has an element of interest, should have an element of interest, and should have an element of contribution towards achieving global sustainability. So standards play a very key and important role in providing the tools, the frameworks, the specifications that will drive the attainment of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They are, you know, let me give you an example. I've just listed there 13 or 14 management system standards, but SABS has a collection of more than 7,500 standards. ISO has a collection of more than 24,000 standards. Every single document that is published by ISO and the SABS, and if we take that and we map it towards a particular goal, and we've done this, we've actually completing this exercise, majority, 90% of these standards can easily fit in and be mapped towards contributing towards a technical solution in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So as much as standards are for voluntary basis, they are not regulations. And that's the beauty about standardization. It allows the consumer of the standard, be it a public sector entity, meaning government departments or regulators, or on the other hand, the private sectors, clearly articulated and defined by Mteto in his presentation by Altron, how this becomes entrenched in an organization, a culture that of an organization where it reinvents itself all the time to make sure that it's relevant, it's sustainable. And that is what we should be thinking about in terms of the framework, not just an organization, but it goes beyond an organization to the various sectors, the various key stakeholders in a country. Beyond that, to the region. I spoke about the continental free trade area and the harmonization on standards and how we participate in influencing the movement of goods and services within the continent through the harmonization of standards. And then globally, in terms of access of your products and services in the global market, which is the greatest and highest return of investment that we should be looking at. So there's different elements of how one wants to envision standardization in achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. But I think the key thing is, and Prof mentioned this as well, you need to appreciate the mega trends and the global context of how you operate to ensure that your solutions become relevant and you as an organization becomes relevant in the ecosystem and driving relevance. That is the heartbeat of innovation in terms of driving sustainability in an organization. Thanks, Makhabu.
Thank you very much, Sadhvir. Thank you. And I see Vili Kotsia Transnet Port Terminals is asking a question to you, Mr. Nyati. I think this is also the question that I jotted down, but it was not like this. I'll just extend it if there's a need. They say, Mr. Nyati, thank you for an inspiring presentation. Practical question, how do you reward innovators for their ideas?
Thank you for that question, Vili. We also very practical when it comes to this. Our employees, they sign when they come to the company that the ideas that they come up with, whilst they are under our employees, those ideas will be belonging to the company. So that's very clear, you know. But at the same time, because now we are asking them for them to contribute and to help us, we put money behind the initiatives. So, for example, the last time we ran this, the top idea, the best idea, the person who came up with that, it was 100K. Say, oh, that sounds quite a lot, or is it small? I don't know whether it's a lot or not. But what we know that people it motivates people to want to participate, to come up with great ideas, whilst at the same time, yeah, it's quite motivational. It does not break the bank when it comes to the company. At the same time, the idea itself needs to have gone through a proper due diligence. Can we make money out of it? Can we realize value? Once we have gone through all of that, then we are in a position to pay people. So yeah, we pay people. You know, it's not just the top one. I think it's the top 3. They get something.
Thank you very much for that. Mine was also on opportunity management, but it's also cut across Henra. So I see the hand from Kamiyang. Kamiyang, can you please come with your question?
Thank you, Chair. I have a few questions, but I'm going to just put the camera on. Teto, I think firstly to all the speakers from Sudhir right up to Hendra and Teto, thank you very much. It's been very, very insightful. The information you've shared here goes a very long way in what we're trying to do as innovation managers within our companies, and I really appreciate that. To Teto, your 100,000 Rand reward that you give to the person, it's amazing. I mean, and the fact that you've got such a good attitude in terms of how you're going to reward your people, that you continuously reward your people. And if you look at your balance sheet and the fact that your intellectual property is contributing to 50% of your profitability, it's no wonder that you're you contributing to rewarding innovation has actually got you to that point. And as innovation managers, we need to really strongly ensure that our companies are also rewarding innovation. So you motivate them, you motivate people to come back. My question for Hendra would be, Hendra, this might be an evil question. The 8 principles of SANS, why 8 principles? And then my follow-up question will be then from Sudhir. Sudhir, if you have to look at the innovation management system and the sustainable development goals, and you kind of marry that to what Prof. Ben has presented on the entire systemic way of managing intellectual property, the systemic way of managing IP, would you then agree that when it comes to innovation management system, 9, 7, and 11 are not the only are the most important SGDs that we're looking at? It's a combination of all, because innovation is inherent in everything that we do. That was my second question there. My third one I forgot. So yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Kami. And I would like to believe that our presenters, Herna and Sadgar, jotted down those questions. I'll like to take Pindile before the response. Pindile?
Thank you so much, Chair, for the opportunity. for me, it's not actually a question, just a comment. First and foremost, just a round of applause to all the presenters from our Dr. Sadvir and also Mteto and Prof for an insight, much appreciated. I like what Mteto, what really stood out to me is what Mteto said on his presentation about inculcating a culture which supports innovation. That being said, for me, I believe if we as organizations may learn to embrace internal collaborations and refrain from competing with one another as competency areas or rather business units and move away with silo mentality culture, I think innovation will prevail because we will get to share ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pindile, for that comment. And I'll just take Dr. Zingai, and that will be the last question before the presenter responds. And we are actually literally left with 5 minutes on the scheduled time. I don't know if this will kick us out. Come in, Dr. Kazamba.
Thank you so much, Chair. I just want to pose a question to the speakers that a lot of business leaders, they talk a lot about innovation being their friend to the future. But the question I have is, how do we help them to use the standards and develop KPIs that are measurable to properly drive innovation and achieve the national development plans that are set out in the beginning?
Thank you very much. Dr. Zingai's question is not directed to anyone specifically. So from Herna to Sadvir, anyone who can take it. I know I heard he's talking about standards, and the business leader, whoever who is having the response can just come in. Herna?
Hi, Makabo. Yes, I think talking to Dr. Katsamba's question, it's very important to be able to not only apply the standards in a way that makes sense for the organization, so it will always be applied in your context, but the measurement of that is so important. And my first reaction is to point into ISO 56008, which is around the guidance for operational measurements. There's a lot of guidance, ideas, questions to ask with examples, annexures that will put that together as well. So I think it's always asking the relevant questions for what it is that you want to measure. And at the same time, innovation management assessment, the guiding standard for that, I think will also be very helpful. But his comment is extremely important. And for us, it's really an activity that must get attention early on in terms of how will I measure that progress in the organization. I hope that's helped to answer the question. I want to add to what Kami has said in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals. It was interesting that you mentioned that, Kami, because in a meeting we had for ISO 56008 last week, it was actually brought up in the conversations. And it was actually said that people, one of the leaders of the group from Canada made the comment and said, we single out a couple of goals when we talk innovation, but in essence, it goes across everything that we do, because innovation exists to solve problems. We need to solve problems, we need to come up with new ideas, and that's relevant in all aspects of life, whether it's in how we going to solve climate change or environmental sustainability and everything else in between. So it was actually a comment that was made by the team that I was part of in terms of how it relates to the goals. So I agree with what you say, and it's something that definitely other experts agree with you as well. In terms of why 8 innovation management principles, it's a very good question. Maybe some of the people, I don't know if Prof. Ben was part of that, that task group specifically, but I was not. But from my perspective, if you think about innovation management and what makes it successful, it always converges on certain areas that we will talk about in terms of you need to have leadership that's going to drive it. You need to think about your context. It was said so many times. You need to address culture. So it is possibly talking about everything that we've always been talking about in terms of making innovation work. But I think also the standards are being worked on collaboratively by 50 countries across the globe. And these are inputs that comes from those countries and those innovation experts in those countries that gets discussed, pulled apart, disagreed upon, let me tell you, very often as well. And then as they agree, these standards are taking form, and it comes from consensus in terms of what we believe is working and what not, what we've seen from experience. So it possibly could have been 9 or 10, or they could have sliced and diced it in different ways. But I'm confident that if you have a look around, those are normally the pillars that make out innovation success in essence, right? So that would be my answer. I don't know if anybody else might have a better response to Kami. Thank you, Makgabo.
Thank you, Herna. Sadhvir, can you just answer the questions and we wrap up?
Oh, great. So I'll respond to Kami. Kami, you're 100% spot on the UN and SDGs. Yes, 3 has been identified, affordable clean energy, industry, innovation, infrastructure, sustainable cities. These are like, key drivers of innovation, but all 17 of them are equally important because there is no sector that is not touched by innovation. And it's become essential for the development of private and public entities to ensure that that innovation is part and parcel of the heartbeat of these organizations. So these groups have multiple challenges that they face in areas like sustainability, climate change, nanotechnologies, water, energy, security, etc. Health sector, which was alluded to from Eltron as well. And standards bring these innovations and allow these innovations to be brought to the marketplace. Standards facilitate the new markets and increase consumer knowledge around these various topics. So my personal view is that innovation is encompassed in all the UN SDGs, and the entire plethora and catalog of standards, both at ISO and IEC level, including our national catalog, can easily be aligned and mapped out to providing solutions towards these UN SDGs. Thanks.
Thank you very much to all our presenters for the deeply presentation that touched us, and I think we are actually now more equipped with what is actually happening in the IM arena. And special thank should go to Beyond and the team for the work well done to ensure that we have got this session. If we were physical, I was going to say a round of applause to our presenters and everyone who took part in this webinar. And this is the end of our webinar, and take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Herna.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Interesting session. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Vili.
Thank you, colleagues. A very interesting session.
Thank you, Nontombi.